Your phone and click the button.
Congratulations, you've made your first app.
I don't know if there's a way to place things relative to each other so that depending on how your display changes, they can stay.
All use mobile apps. You all know about how to use these things, but the question is, can you make your own? Can you make an app as a present for your friend?
没人否认 App 已经深刻地改变了世界，它成为新一代人理解、改变世界的重要工具。Hal 是这项技术的重要的发明者之一。
Let's start from the app's inventor. It launched 5 years ago. Could you describe to us the major, the major idea behind the app, and what's the whole background of the inventor? Yeah.
There's this marvelous new technology. You have to understand, right? Everyone has smartphones. 7 years ago there were no smartphones, right? And this is an amazing rapid change that's just changing everything in society. It's making new powers that people can do. App Inventor is about opening up that power to everybody, not just as a consumer that you can buy apps, but as a creator, that you really can make things. And our vision is that people will be able to look at these smartphones as something that can express their creativity and also express their desire to do something good for society and their community. In 1968, computers cost millions of dollars, and they were used only by very large companies and by the military. And we ran a project that said, oh no, what you do with computers that's really for 13-year-old kids to have fun with. And everyone thought we were completely crazy, because the whole idea of these very large, expensive, forbidding machines, to say that's actually about education and that's about learning. People just thought we were crazy, but we had tremendous fun. And then 10 or 15 years later, that vision got realized when the personal computer came out in the early 1980s. And for me, the same thing is happening with smartphones. The basic idea of App Inventor is that this really is a very powerful technology. It's a very powerful technology. It's a very scary technology. If you think about things like privacy and you think about what the system can do. And the philosophy behind App Inventor is fundamentally this technology should be democratized. And so the notion behind App Inventor is that this is so powerful that you should just give everybody the idea that they can shape it to do what they want. And that starts with children. Don't think about this phone as some very complicated thing that some large company is making and is only for specialists. Think about it as something that a 10-year-old child can work with. And that's the philosophy behind App Inventor.
So how to evaluate the consequence? 5 years passed when you started.
Well, right now we have, I think, 3 million people around the world who have registered with App Inventor. We have, 250,000 people a week who are building apps. So they're actually, I don't mean just visiting the website, I mean they actually are coming and using the App Inventor system to build apps. And I think success for me is that this vision gets realized and we start seeing mobile technology as something that kids can do. If I make mobile applications, I can make something that can be used by my friends, I can make something that can be used by my family, I can make something that links into the infrastructure where my community is, and kids should get the feeling that not only can they be creative, not only can they be expressive, but they can actually do something with this technology to improve their lives and improve the lives of the people around them.
Mm-hmm. And a different technology shape different generation. like you mentioned, the big computer, then personal
That's
PC, then mobile technology. So how, in your mind, how has the mobile technology shaped this generation's mentality, behavior, psychology?
How has mobile technology shaped this generation? There's so many people who are writing about that and studying about that. There's the whole sense of for good or for bad. People are living their lives in these electronic communities where they get the idea that they can automatically be communicating with people across the city or across the world. And a kid's experience of even what reality is unbounded in a way that it never was before. If you ask, how that's going to turn out, well, I don't know. It hasn't turned out yet. It's barely started. This is only the very, very beginning of a very, very vast change. And China is just fascinating to all of us because somehow, maybe I'm wrong, but I have the impression that this idea of democratizing technology is maybe more powerful in China. And we're working with the Guangzhou Educational Information Center. They would like to include App Inventor in the high school and middle school curriculum throughout the city of Guangzhou. And we're working with them to make that possible. The kids in China are amazing, but of course I feel that kids everywhere are amazing because there's just so much excitement.
And also lots of boys, girls involved into the App Inventor, it become user. Could you tell me maybe several cases that the apps they created so impress you a lot, or very interesting, very funny, or?
Okay. Well, in App Inventor, the things that impress me is where kids have done something to try and improve the world. So there's a very, very nice example. In the country of Moldova. Moldova's on the border of Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union, and they have a problem with polluted water. And there was a group of high school students, I think four high school girls, who simply wrote an app that allowed people to report on where the water was safe to drink in their community. What are wells to avoid and what are voids to do. And then they built up a kind of crowdsourced database. So if you're traveling in Moldova or you're a citizen in Moldova, you know where the water is safe to drink. Now that makes a big difference. And then you say that was done by four kids. And they had the vision that they could make a real difference, in this case to their entire country. And what's interesting is that as technology with App Inventor, it's not very, very sophisticated. They could build that based on what's already in App Inventor. They didn't have to do some deep technological change to it. But it's the idea that allowed them to do that, and the idea that gosh, we, four girls in high school, can do something that has an impact on our country. And that's the kind of thing that I like in App Inventor.
And you involved into the open source movement quite early. How to evaluate the change of the movement, and what's the trend of movement now?
Right, so the open source community, of course, has grown very, very, very large. I have to say that I'm both a founder and a board member of an organization called the Free Software Foundation. And what the Free Software Foundation does, it publishes a software license called the General Public License, which says you can take all of this software and use it for free, provided you agree to share with everyone else your contributions. And so what happens is that free software, or open source, helps that cycle happen, that there has to be available resources. If I had to, imagine that I could not make any software unless I had to license the stuff I am building on. Then the whole innovation cycle would go much, much, much more slowly, if at all.
Android is open source for lots of makers, but Apple system is quite closed. So how to compare these different systems?
So the comparison between Android and iPhone reflects very much a different philosophy between Apple and Google. And it's not that one is good and one is bad. They're just different ways of running companies. Google comes from having built upon Unix and Linux and GNU Linux, and people were used to being able to say, here's this material and software that we can just work with. Now, Apple had a very, very different philosophy. Apple is built on, we design our products so that they're beautiful and perfect and really work on them, and therefore we don't want other people coming in and messing with the internals of that. So it's not the least bit surprising that it happens. They're just two very good philosophies. App Inventor, when we built it, really depended on the fact that we could get at the internals of the Android operating system. We use that as MIT right now. Whenever we make changes, we build on the Android operating system in a way that you cannot with the iPhone. But they're both very, very successful ways to do things. One of the differences, which is not so much about the source, but about the distribution. One of the visions of App Inventor is that kids and anyone should be able to build apps and distribute them. As an MIT professor, is produce students who both have a very, very solid background in technology, but also understand what the policy issues are and understand what the philosophical issues are. So these are tremendously, tremendously complicated. As people argue about whether that's happening now, will this all go away in 2 years, and then people will see that many of the stuff that we're working on now is just ridiculous and not to be supported. I'm not sure of that. I think if there's a bubble, it's got quite a bit longer to run now. And that's because the technology keeps moving faster and faster. So the next big thing is almost unimaginable, because things are just moving so fast. What people have discovered is that you can program DNA very much the same way you think about programming computers. The interesting thing about technology is that as you build things with technology, you improve the tools that let you make more things. So that's a fundamental dynamic, especially in computing. More recently, people said, gee, the internet also can be a mechanism for control. And these are two forces that are basically fighting. And I don't know quite what you say is that both of them get more and more and more important. In relation to what I do, my sense of that is to democratize the technology. I think in the long run, what you need to do is to have people understand this technology. That's the first step. It should not be mysterious, and they see what it's doing. And to me, that's the fundamental thing you have to do. That individual people have to begin by understanding the technology. So there really is a political sense behind that.